Great. Well, thank you very much. Normally, when I've spoken at Collision before and I've spoken at Web Summit, I usually start with a series of Coca-Cola commercials. So this time I decided to bypass the commercials and see how many people actually wanted to hear what I had to say instead of seeing the commercials. But I did decide to take the opportunity to do a product placement here at the same time. What I wanted to do is to take you a little bit about sort of where I see technology going, where I see how enterprises are going to be using technology, and what we're doing at Coca-Cola to work with startups. So Coca-Cola has been around for over 100 years. We've been innovating in our bottle designs, we've been innovating in our products, and in more recent years we've been innovating in technology. Everything from our freestyle machines, which can pour over 150 different drinks that are based on medical microdosing technology, to things that we're doing for interactive Super Bowl ads, to all kinds of other things. So we're always incorporating technology into everything we do. But I thought it would be very interesting, and at least for me, and I think when I start looking at the future, I always look at the past. And the reason is, many years ago, I met a gentleman named Irving Waldowski-Berger, who was a senior fellow at IBM at the time. And he had a theory that actually we go backwards in order to go forwards. And so I thought it'd be interesting to just take a look at sort of the history of computing and see where we've been through the ages very quickly and understand how that's impacting where we're going in the future. So many, many years ago, and I hate to admit I do remember this, but everything was on mainframes, everything was on dumb terminals. So if you think dumb terminals then, you can think Google Chromebook today, by the way. It's a dumb terminal. Everything was dealing with disk drives. Of course, we don't have these big disk drives anymore. Everything has been shrinking down. But corporations also were doing a lot of home-built, in-house developed applications, and then started moving to sort of individually developed packaged apps. So we saw a lot of silo apps come around at that time. Then we ended up with the era of the personal computer, and we said, okay, now we got to link these computers together. So we ended up with the concept of client-server, and then all of a sudden the web came about. And the web came about basically because of some research that was done out of Chicago initially that created the browser, and we ended up going there. And at the same time, the ERP vendors started getting on the scenes. And so the ERP vendors had the theory of, let's take best practices, let's take all these individual packages that have been developed over the years for supply chain and finance, for logistics, for marketing, for customer service. Let's just bundle them in and make it very easy for an IT organization to be able to do its business. The reality is what happened was we ended up commoditizing the IT environment because everybody had something that was the same. So as we're moving forward, what's happening now is we're seeing in some cases the breakup of this commoditization. Things are moving into the clouds, as we know. At Coca-Cola, we went onto a multi-cloud strategy, started it 5 years ago when I arrived. We had about 3% of our applications were in the cloud. Today, we're about 60% in the cloud. So you're seeing this rapid move. We're using most of the major cloud vendors because we have not found any real value in consolidating onto one. And the reality is each one of the cloud vendors, there's some very specific technologies, if you look at their roots, as to why you would choose one cloud vendor over another for different types of activities. Some of the examples that we've talked about before is if you look at the Google Cloud, for example. Google's roots were in search. Google also has roots in video. It has roots in analytics. If you start thinking about this, it makes them very, very good for deep learning type applications. It makes them very, very good for artificial intelligence. It makes it very, very good also for low latency applications because they actually will convert the protocols of HTTP into something internally and run it over its fiber. So if you want an application to run fast, have low latency, have guaranteed availability, Google is very good for that. We're using Microsoft for an Internet of Things platform because they've built out a very good application profile for Internet of Things. We're using Amazon for other things. We're using IBM for other things. If you take what's the best these clouds offer and you move your applications and align them up with those capabilities, you actually get ahead. So cloud computing has changed everything just as mobile has. I always hate people when they say mobile first. The reality is mobile's mobile. It's everywhere. Walking around here, all of us are walking computers. We have at least one device, maybe two or three, you have to be working in a mobile world because we no longer sit at desks and perform functions unless it's just rapid transactions. IoT is another one of the terms that I always like to joke around with, because how can you say Internet of Things? Because everything is connected over the internet. It's just things. We're connecting every devices, we're connecting people. A few years ago, I connected dogs. That was an interesting experiment. But you can also connect vending machines, we're connecting trucks, we're connecting everything that we have, and we're connecting them through mobile devices, we're connecting them through the clouds. And so what's on the next horizon is what's called node computing or fog computing. And you can see research going on underway in a number of institutions, a number of startups in the Silicon Valley and elsewhere, is this concept of everything being pulled together into a cloud. It's now going to be pushed back out because no longer can we wait 1,500 milliseconds, 2,000 milliseconds for a transaction. All of us almost have like an ADD type syndrome. We want things instantaneously, and we can't defeat physics. So we're starting to see compute, and we're starting to see research start pushing things out to the edge all over the world. It's going to allow us to deal with regulatory issues. It's going to allow us to deal with security differently, and it's going to allow us to deal with on-demand, real-time expectations. So if you look at some of the trends that have been going on, you can see Coca-Cola and every other large enterprise is right in the middle of this. You know, in 2015, we were talking about compute everywhere. We were talking about Internet of Things. You can see as you get into 2017, and I looked at what Gartner had here, it was actually pretty interesting. It's actually pretty right on. This is a little bit on the leading edge, but it's right on. Blockchain is going to be a major disruption to business. It's not just going to be Bitcoin. It is going to be how we ensure trust, how we actually get things done in the future. Huge upside potential. Last year we rolled out augmented reality at Coca-Cola to help our salespeople be able to sell our products, be able to convince our customers to what a display should look like so people could see this stuff real time. It's already happening. We've been working with virtual reality. Virtual reality, we haven't quite found the fit yet. There's some great marketing applications, but I did see in the Silicon Valley a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, the first application of it to help service machinery and be able to get sort of this merger of virtual reality and augmented reality together. So all these things are changing, and it's having us to once again rethink where IT is going. So we've been mobile, cloud, and IoT. Now we have to start thinking about the future. So I like to spend my time trying to think 2 years out to 3 years out, and hopefully we guess it right. But these are things that we're actually seeing today, we're working on today, and in some cases, Coke has worked on these a few years ago. So we're on the leading edge of many of these trends. Now, if we look at what's happening from a business, a technology-related challenges, this is what we're facing every day. And again, myself and my colleagues at other companies, and again, Gartner did a great job on this, but a lot of what we're trying to do is not technology-oriented. A lot of this is process, a lot of it is people, a lot of it is IT operating models. These are the real challenges of the enterprise. So where people can help us identify what our real challenges are, or not identify, but help us understand how we can address these challenges, that's where the opportunity is. So the technology on the one hand is leading us to the future, but we still have organizational challenges, we still have regulatory challenges, we have governance challenges, things that are legacy from the past in our companies. So what do we have to think about for the future? How are we approaching it? This is really where the opportunities start coming in. You know, it's a puzzle. And traditionally, IT applications have been developed in silos and deployed in silos. We have to get to the point where we have a different mindset. We have to think about reusability. Microservices, which were made very popular by Netflix, I'm sure many of you are Netflix users, is one of the key drivers. However, we also have to get to what I call recyclable and disposable. No longer is a company going to be buying technology, amortizing it over 5-7 years, and trying to get value out of it, because the pace of technology that's happening, driven by many of you that are being creative in the startup community, is making it impossible for us to look at long term. So we have to figure out what can we develop and reuse, what can we recycle, meaning something that we've done in the past that we can repurpose for today, and what are those things that we're going to develop and deploy on a mission type basis in order to do this. And so in fact, when you look forward, what's interesting is corporate computing is evolving. We've gone from these ERPs We've gone to platforms, just like the Navy is. A platform is an aircraft carrier, an oil rig is a platform, and we've all moved into the clouds. What's interesting is, are we going to make the same mistakes of the past and use proprietary technology that locks us in and allows us not to be flexible and agile, everything that we need, or are we going to change and move forward? There was an interesting article that was written. It has nothing to do with IT, but you get your inspirations from different places. The US Navy put something out a few years ago about procurement, and the name of the article was Platforms versus Payloads. And the concept was, no longer can the Navy or any military spend $1 million to shoot down a $10,000 rocket. The economics don't work. So they needed to come up with a way to find the right technology for the right job in the right mission in the right situation. IT needs to evolve and do the same things, and that's where we're going. So we're looking at abstracting everything. We're using APIs. We're starting to think of things as Lego building blocks. We're starting to think of things as decks of cards. A deck of cards you can play an infinite number of games with, as opposed to just having 5 cards and being stuck with one game. So we're trying to think about, how do we put pieces of things together differently and create new and create the future. The beauty of it is that everybody that's here and everywhere around the world is actually coming up with new ideas. What we need to do is piece it together. We need the ability to crowdsource. And in crowdsourcing, we have to learn to work with startups. So new times require a new hypothesis. Okay? The disruptive digital technologies are happening at a very fast rate. No corporation is actually able to handle it by themselves. Traditional approaches don't work. We have to look outside. We have to be more open. So we created a program that's called The Bridge, which is how we work with startups. Now, the challenge with working with startups is that many of you looking at this, when you think of a company like Coke, everybody wants to work with Coke. The challenge we have is that we are in over 200 different countries. We have needs around the world. People need to be able to scale if you're going to work with us. We have things called indemnification clauses. Every corporation does, which means if something goes wrong, it's your fault. Don't look at us. And by the way, there's going to be financial consequences. Security guidelines are becoming more and more important. You need to adhere to strict and stringent security. Culturally, we don't know how to work with startups well. Global, we are this big, large company. We need to make sure that you're going to be in existence, that there is staying power, that you have financial security, that you have the resources. But most importantly, if you're going to work with us, you have to help tell a story and convince us that you're going to be able to address all of these things and you're going to benefit our business. So we created a program. We launched it in Tel Aviv 4 years ago. Last year, Turner Broadcasting Company joined as a partner. This year, Mercedes-Benz joined as a partner. And it's all about working with startups. So the Bridge program, every year, what we do is we work with the investment community, the accelerators, the incubators, the universities, and we put out major themes. We say, bring us people that are reinventing marketing or thinking about how to reinvent customer service or working on health and wellness, these major themes. We bring them in. 150 applicants are screened by the venture community and the investors and others. Out of that, we read all 150 applications. 75 of the founders are invited in to pitch. Out of the 75 founders, we select 12 to work with at the most during a year, and the year is for about a 7-month period. The first 2 years of the program, we ended up performing 63 pilots in 27 countries. We ended up issuing 9 contracts, and 3 of these were global contracts out of a total of the 19 companies that were in the program. So this is actually a lot better success rate than many of the acceleration and incubation programs. In fact, the accelerators and incubators and investors love us because we're actually providing real-world experience to the startups, and at the same time, the valuations are rising in the second round. So this program is very good. We've opened up a similar program in Mexico City to serve the Latin American markets, and we're testing another program we call the Bridge Community in Atlanta in order to try to develop the Atlanta market. So this is a win-win for everyone. Coca-Cola and its partners win. Our startups are winning because they're getting the experience. They're able to talk about working with Coke. Our technology partners, from Amazon to Google to Microsoft to Salesforce, and everybody is providing free technology to our startups to help them get a leg up and move forward. And the VCs and the investors are winning because the valuations are rising. So by looking at this as a partnership, by not taking equity, I'm not impacting anybody's cap table. By not claiming anybody's IP, I'm letting the startups grow, and what I'm doing is I'm getting first mover advantage. And the first mover advantage is what's very, very important to us at Coca-Cola. I would love to have more people try my product every year. If I can get 500,000 more people to try my product every year, I'll make more over the lifetime of people drinking my products, everything from water to milk to juices to teas to coffees to the Coca-Cola product. If I can take 1/10 of a cent out of my supply chain, because I have the world's largest supply chain with more vehicles than DHL, FedEx, and UPS combined, that's what's important to me about innovating and growing my business. And all of you, everybody in the technology community can help us with these things, can help us with our social philanthropy work. We can help us create new jobs for women, that we have a 5x20 program, and that we're creating 5 million new jobs for women by the year 2020. Our new freshwater devices that we're putting out around the world in order to be able to provide fresh water in areas that don't have fresh water. All of these things, we all work together as part of a program to make it work. So I wanted to say thank you very much for the time. I apologize again, no commercials, but hopefully this was informative. Thank you.